What's up, guys? This is Bradley. I wanted to tell you about a company that I really, really like, ePayPolicy. They completely saved my tail on a case last week. As many of you know, I started my independent insurance agency with a lot of questions, concerns. I didn't know what I didn't know, and that proved true when I wrote my first agency-billed homeowners policy. I write this policy, and the client tells me, all right, let me pay you with a credit card. I'm like, how do I take a credit card payment? And guess what, guys? Square and PayPal, it's against their terms of service for you to use it for an insurance premium. God forbid somebody pay you and then you end up not getting that payment. So in came ePayPolicy. They completely saved the day for me, got me signed up within 24 hours. They provide the simplest solution for your agency to collect credit card and ACH payments while finally putting a stop to chasing those paper checks around. I don't want to be in the collection business. I want to be in the insurance business. With ePayPolicy, you pass the processing fees on to the client, keeping your bottom line intact while providing an added convenience to your clients of accepting digital payments. The page that you send the client for them to make the payment is branded and tailored to your agency. Mine has my logo. And when it comes to reconcile, their accounting dashboard keeps the process clean and simple, and they integrate with all the major management systems, including mine, at no extra cost. Look, they know how busy you and your clients are. They provide the simplest solution for your agency to collect credit card and ACH payments while finally putting a stop to chasing paper checks. There's no contract, no setup fee, and no hidden costs. It takes less than 5 minutes to sign up, and they'll have you up and collecting digital payments within 24 hours like they did for me. Give ePayPolicy a call or hit them up online at ePayPolicy.com and let them know that the insurance guy sent you.
Insurance agents from around the world, welcome to the Insurance Guys podcast. My name is Scott Howell, your fearless host and leader, insurance agency owner and insurance evangelist for I Protect Insurance and Financial Services, based out of Huntsville, Alabama. And before we get started on today's episode, please help me welcome. He is a 6'3" sophomore from Saraland, Alabama, Parade First Team All-American, Rivals 5-star recruit. He is a fantastic insurance agent and my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and welcome the incomparable Mr. Bradley Flowers. How are you, Bradley?
I'm great, Scott. How are you today?
Man, I am fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, I am in Mobile, Alabama. Bradley, I am a completely different person in sunny weather. I was telling my wife this the other day. I don't know what it is. And I know our guest is down in South Florida right now. We're going to bring him on in just a second. But when I get in sunny weather, I'm just a completely different guy. Maybe I just need to move to Arizona or California and live in San Diego for the rest of my life.
I don't know.
Could we figure out how to do the podcast remotely from San Diego somehow? Johnny says it can all be done, folks. It can all be done. Guys, I'm excited to have our guest on the podcast today. Before we get started,
why don't you see if Mike Stromso has a guest house? You just live with him. That
is the greatest idea you have ever. Bradley Flowers just gave out the greatest idea he has ever had in his entire life. How about I don't live in the guest house and I just live in the guest bedroom at Mike's house? And like every morning he gets up and he just sees me in my tidy whities.
You say, insurance agents.
Me, hey, Stromso, if you're listening to this right now, here's a mental image I want you to burn into your mind. You passing by the kitchen after you just had a 15-mile bike ride at 4:30 in the morning, and all you're wanting to do is go in there and get some smart water out of the refrigerator, and here comes Howell in his tidy whities going to drink orange juice out of the carton in your refrigerator. Think about that for a little while this week. And try to maintain a positive attitude when you do that. So
I wish this was one of those times where the audio messed up and we could take that out.
Guys, hey, listen, our mission on this podcast is every time we come on here, we want to help you agents in any way we can. And we go across a lot of different subjects. I know some things it may seem like, we may be a little redundant on. But guys, yesterday we did the Trilogy podcast with the Facebook management group. We were fortunate enough to have Mr. Patrick Romey down here in Mobile, who I believe had probably the time of his life while he was here.
I think so.
And so, I know it's like, well, y'all have already done a podcast on Facebook, video, Facebook stuff. And I'm like, dude, when you get the chance to have the guy down here, in the insurance space that's working on, stuff for the insurance industry, Dude, you gotta get on there and get after it.
To tell a funny story, obviously Patrick got put through the ringer yesterday because he landed in Mobile and we were go, all day.
10:30 the night before he landed, I believe.
No, 12:30. And
ouch.
After several delays. So we go to dinner last night. We organized a dinner with several local influencers and insurance agents to just have, connect with him, which is what he wanted us to do. And dinner ran a little bit long. We were all exhausted. And it was about 9:45, I think, when we got back to the car. And I was like, okay, man, I'll see you guys later. And Scott's like, me and Patrick are going to the bar. And Patrick's like, what? In the back seat.
He said something like, can you kind of give me some info on what we're doing?
What are we doing? And so
don't worry about it, Patrick. Just stay in the back seat.
So anyway, I ended up joining them at the bar.
Yes.
Anyway.
I'm going to say this. For a guy from Chicago that works in the space that he works in, to have to sit here for 7 hours while I aggressively stare at him and just
with your sunglasses on,
and just wear him out with questions. I mean, laser beam focused 2 feet away from him, just stink eyeing him all day yesterday and talking to him. I think he left here with an appreciation of how difficult it is to do that and stay on point and stay that mentally alert for that long. I think that was one of the things he probably took from this was, man, that was a long day right there. I mean, that was a lot. But
yeah, I agree.
Man, I loved having him here. He is a great guy. Not only probably a great employee, I know he's a great employee for Facebook and part of that team, but he's also a great person too. So, well, guys, listen, we've got a very special guest on today's show, and I'm really looking forward to talking to him. Number one, because he's a friend of mine, and I've gotten to spend a little bit of time with him down at Elevate 2019. So, without further ado, let me bring my guest on today, guys. He was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. He currently lives in Mandeville, Louisiana. He's a graduate of Brother Martin High School and the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. He is married to the beautiful Janae Emerson Hollier, and they have not one, not two, but 3 beautiful babies. Vivian, 15, Joe, 8, and I love this name more than it. Bradley, if you have a baby girl again sometime, I want you to name her this name. It's Emmy Bay.
Okay.
Love that so much. 1 year old, so I know he's got his hands full. Guys, he is a 13-year veteran of the insurance industry and transitioned from the captive side of the agency world in 2008 and has been an independent agent since that time. He's developed a niche market in cyber insurance, hint, hint, what we're going to be talking about. And in the summer of 2018, he created the first live insurance talk show on Instagram called the Insurance Scramble. I've actually heard a few of these episodes.
It's a great show.
Absolutely, and he's got some really good guests too. The show airs on Saturday mornings and serves to create raw and honest insurance conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the other incomparable Mr. Joe Hollier. How you doing, Joe?
Hey, Scott. How you doing, buddy? Great to be here. Hey, real quick, I want to offer you a second recommendation. South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, to be
I'm gonna writing that down.
Is a fantastic location to do a podcast. I'm actually considering moving my show here.
Listen, but you have hurricanes there, though, man.
Yeah, but not once every 10 years.
Yeah, but how often is that?
Exactly,
really?
Exactly. And hey, here's the beautiful thing about that too, Joe. Is we have hurricanes, but at least you get like a week's notice so you can get out of town. How about
true.
that?
That's right.
That's true.
That's right. Let me tell you guys this. Right now I'm sitting by a marina. I'm looking at boats, water, palm trees, and sunshine. And you talk about being in a happier place when the sun's out. You add palm trees and water to that mix, and I couldn't be happier. And to be on this podcast. I mean, it's like a grand slam today.
Dude, thank you so much for saying that. And I want to tell you again how much I appreciate you being on the show. So do me a favor real quick. I want you to jump in the passenger seat of my DeLorean. I'm gonna pick you up like I did Patrick last night and take you out. Go back in time. Talk a little bit about how you got started in the insurance world and bring us back forward to today.
Sure. It started right after a catastrophe. So Hurricane Katrina hit 2005. I was upended and wound up in Dallas, Texas for about 2 months while we're trying to figure out our lives and jobs. I was no longer employed because the business was shut down indefinitely. I was in the restaurant and hospitality industry at that point. And a couple months later, I made my way back home to New Orleans, kind of took some odd jobs. But my uncle at the time, who was a AAA captive, said, why don't you come into the insurance business? And I, vehemently objected that idea, did not want anything to do with the idea of being an insurance guy. But he laid it out real nicely for me on the opportunities and kind of where you can go from startup to being your own agent and more importantly, having a family and a career. So I eventually took the bait on that, worked with him for about 2 years as in the captive world with AAA, and realized that, I wanted to go out on my own and just have more options. And I really liked what the independent space offered. So, jumped from there and haven't looked back since. I've been a personal lines guy for the most part for most of my insurance career. But as I've gotten older and hopefully a little smarter, realized that there's things I'm really more interested in and more passionate about that I want to follow up on and learn and sell. Because when you have a love for something, the selling part comes easy.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
So that's kind of where that was kind of my trajectory over the last 13 years. And, funny enough, 13 years later, I love insurance more now than I ever have. And I couldn't say that 5 years ago.
Right. Do you think, Joe, part of that relates to, and I touched on this a little bit yesterday while we had Patrick Romey with Facebook here in town with us. There's been this advent, in my opinion, over the last few years, specifically with all these podcasts that are coming out, and the industry seems to be, in terms of agency force, especially on the independent side, more togetherness, more free flow of information. Do you think that's part of what's, added to you kind of being more,
yes.
I should say, happier with the industry as a whole?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I couldn't have said it better than that. Togetherness is a great word for it.
Right.
I think now, because I think for a long time we were basically the summary or we existed in the environment that we were in. So
Exactly.
if you were in an office that thrived or didn't thrive, you were just a product of that office.
Exactly.
Right? And that network and maybe your local community, depending on how much you did outreach. But now I feel like there's so much more networking and communication and conversations, and whether it's through podcasts or Insurance Scramble or conferences or just hanging out at dinner, with you guys and Elevate, you have this unprecedented camaraderie. That it's palpable now for me, and I'm sure it is for a lot of folks, where you just feel like you're not in it for yourself anymore. You're in it for everybody in your network and your peers, and that's just has so much more value to me now.
What's funny about it, as you sit here talking, I'm just thinking through that. And, for the guys that got into the business back in like the mid to late 70s and even the early 80s, they're kind of reaching that point now where they have a mature agency and they're kind of starting to think about succession plans and the next chapter of their life. But, throughout that time period, all the way through the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s, and even up to a couple of years ago, I think I would compare it. I think the most accurate description I can give it is it was almost like being in a loveless kind of marriage, where exactly what you just said, there you were in your agency and maybe you knew a few agents in your little town or big town that you lived in that you could call on and talk to. But beyond that, that was about it, right? I mean, that was pretty much it in the industry. And I think for guys like you and to some degree myself, I think this new revolution that we've created, and when I say we, I don't mean like Scott and Bradley. We're just a small part of that. But, the totality of all the different insurance scrambles and the Ryan Hanleys and the Jason Casses and all
Joey,
the Chris Paradisos and the Mike Stromsos and all these people that, are beating the drum as loud as they can possibly beat it, that we all need to help each other. I think Paradiso is probably the one that I can think of that does the best job of that. We all need to, we need to come together and unite instead of sitting in our little office somewhere and talking to an agent 3 times a year down the street. But I think all of that has has really helped a lot of guys like you and I to kind of get recharged in the industry. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally makes sense. And I'm shaking my head and nodding my head because, to me, it's like you might be in an office traditionally for a long time and you're kind of stuck with the team you're on, right?
Right.
You might care a lot, and then you might have 5 other people that don't give a crap about their job or don't like insurance business. They're just doing it to get a paycheck.
Right.
But the beauty of social media and being able to network like we do now,
right,
you're able to find the people that care about what they're doing and who are motivated and who want to motivate you. And I give credit to Joey and Agency Nation too,
right,
about just the whole aspect of bringing people together. They
Sure.
figured out a way to bring people together and get them fired up
right,
about whatever's going to develop in this industry. Having that kind of mutual support versus a stale or stagnant environment. You might have gotten lucky and landed in a good agency or created your own amazing agency, but chances are, you're working with a group of people where a large percentage didn't really give 2 craps about insurance and got, kind of worn out on it over time. And I can say a lot of the folks I work with, they've been in it for 15 years plus.
Right.
They're done,
Right.
They're baked. But now I feel this resurrection of just excitement and energy. And that's what's exciting about it, because now you have a lot of people like all the ones you guys just named, including you guys, that are, that really care about what's going to happen. And it's just evident every week through your energy that, this is going to be an interesting next decade coming up here.
Absolutely. So let's move on to our topic of conversation today. And I'm very interested in talking to you about this. So today, guys, we're going to talk about cyber. Cyber insurance is one of those hot button topics in the insurance industry. It has been for a few years, especially among commercial agencies where you have, businesses that can truly be affected by this, and in some cases could actually be put out of business if somebody breaks into their system and gets client information and they're not covered. So Joe, tell us a little bit how you got into cyber, where you are with it today, and what you see as the future of it.
Yes. So cyber, and I'll start with this. Cyber can be a very complex, confusing term in and of itself, and it carries such a big, broad stroke of what does that even mean?
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think for a lot of companies or people, they just they kind of look at cyber, think about cyber. Okay, if I get hacked and somebody gets my information, are they going to steal it and create an identity, or are they going to do this? So first and foremost, I think the one aspect that needs to kind of shift is how it's perceived. Instead of saying cyber, you can say hackers. People know what hackers are. People know that there's people out there, criminals out there who want to steal from you. It's just on a different platform now, right? So we're all connected. They want to get in our information, or our money, or our personal info, or health records. So to understand cyber, you kind of have to know what they're looking for. And I can tell you, I find it really intriguing and fascinating because, one, this is something that aligns with insurance. You want to protect yourself because there are things you can do to prevent hackers from getting through.
Right.
There's software that you can have. You can teach your team how to be more resilient, but you're never going to be 100% secure.
Right.
And because of that, you need to be protected. I mean, if you're a small to medium-sized business, you have assets you want protected. So that aligns with a product to sell. What I love about it is that it's ever evolving. It's not something that stays the same. It's something that requires a lot of attention, and somehow it has just fired me up to constantly want to keep up with this because somebody needs to be doing this. and there's people that are doing it, don't get me wrong, but on the insurance, just in the insurance picture, we need to have more folks who are paying attention to how the risks are evolving and what those coverages on policies are. Because cyber, for most of the policy forms that you've seen for a while, you might have some cyber coverage or some data breach coverage, but when you really dig in and start to understand the coverages, you're going to quickly realize you have very limited coverage. And then in a lot of cases, no coverage for, things like business interruption and asset funds transferred fraudulently and things like that. So I think what we as agents in the insurance space need to do is, if nothing else, learn how to simplify cyber, learn what the coverages are, because at some point, and we might not be there yet, but at some point, It's going to go from being a coverage, oh yeah, I know I should have it, but I'm not convinced.
That's where it is now.
Yeah, that's where it is now. And I feel like in a couple years, maybe it's less, but I feel like within the next 1 to 3 years, it's going to be one of those, I can't believe you don't have cyber.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think the future is going to be big in that market. But first and foremost, you have to know what you're selling, because when you're looking at the impact a cyber attack can have on a small to medium sized business, 60% small businesses don't recover when they're attacked. That's a huge number.
Is there and I haven't been in the industry long enough, been in 10 years, is there a coverage that came into play years ago that we can sort of compare to cyber that, I don't know what
people didn't think they needed?
Personal articles policy. Some, not that, but something to that effect, or an endorsement that people didn't think they needed, and then a few years down the road, it's like, holy crap, we have to have that.
Right.
Is there anything that's comparable to? And I know that it's not on a net level because cyber is so new. I mean, the internet is finally reaching maturity. It's moving so fast. But is there anything you think, Joe, that it's comparable to?
Not that has that level of impact. Because the thing with cyber is if you get hit, you can be destroyed. I'm just trying to brainstorm a little bit and think about, coverages, personal articles. Yeah, that could be a similar type of
but it doesn't destroy you if you.
Well, listen. Hey, here's my thing on it. Let's take any insurance coverage that people all have now. Okay, I'm sure back in the day, I don't know when, but at some point people were building houses and didn't have homeowners insurance.
Yeah.
And one day some bitch's house burned down, and they were like, "Hey, we probably need to invent some insurance here."
Here's the thing, though. It goes back to the whole life insurance sales tactic of the goose that lays the golden egg.
Yeah, right.
You want to insure the goose, or you want to insure the egg,
right?
And if you look at things from the big picture, losing your house overall is not going to be as bad as going out of business,
right?
Because exactly,
you know what I mean. If you look at it that way, I mean, cyber could be down the road, if not today, the most important policy you could have. And I know as a business owner myself, I mean, from just a PR perspective, I am mortified of something like that happening to me.
That's exactly it, Bradley. And you know what? If you look at it that way, I mean, I feel like even right now in this moment, cyber is more important than your general liability policy. I mean, you talk about if somebody gets into your system and just completely annihilates it, and you don't have the kind of coverage it takes to recover. I mean, you're not in a place where you could just rebuild your business.
Right.
You're going to be done.
Maybe that's the selling point there.
You're looking at the business equivalent of the witness protection program. You are starting another You're starting another business under another name, and then you cannot build your personal brand at all.
Right.
It's that business is gone.
Right.
I don't mean to paint such a doomsday scenario, but it really is. And the reality is, like I said, that number 60% is real. 60% of small to medium sized businesses don't recover, and the average expense for a well thought out, well executed cyber attack is about $1.6 million to a business. Yeah. So, when you're putting that up against a fire policy or a general liability policy, just the residual impact that cyber attack could have is it's real. And until you see it up close, a lot of folks aren't buying into it.
The thing is too, I mean, is how many freaking contractors have a GL claim a year and nobody hears about it? You get hacked and put out 1,500 people's socials, dates of birth, addresses, names, kids' names out there. You're top of the news story more than likely in your town. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, and you know what? A lot of them don't even report them because of the fear of reputation.
The ramifications. Harm. Yeah. I know. Yeah. I had a small carrier one time tell me, I can't remember the exact number, but they said, guess how many attempted breaches. This is a carrier now. Guess how many attempted breaches we have a day?
50.
It was
I'm going to say about 1,500.
It was more like 900.
Yeah.
Now that is maybe skewed a little bit. That may be perceiving things that there's a 1% chance that could be phishing, that could be a breach. You know what I mean? Right. To major attacks. And Me and the VP of this company were having this conversation. That's who told me this. And I said, you guys have one Target episode. Right. What happened to Target?
Right.
You're done.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
and I wasn't making the argument for cyber. I mean, really, honestly, to the listeners, this sort of, the concept of cyber liability came on in my head when I started talking to Joe. But we were just talking about, how devastating that would be to an insurance company, let alone an agency.
Right. You can stack a policy now to get coverages for things like reputational harm. I mean, a lot of your expenses are going to come when you need to notify people that their information was hacked. And then, you got to bring in forensics teams to not only stop hemorrhage the damage, but figure out if you can get some of your stuff back. So that's where, something like $500 an hour, that's where a lot of your expenses are going to come in, on the front end. But it's one of these things that I'm trying to find an analogy here that until you see it right up in front of you, people aren't paying attention to it. Until it affects you or your friend, you're not going to really pay attention to it.
So 2 things I'll say, Joe. Number one, I've got a 5-hour drive back to Huntsville this afternoon at 12 noon. On my way home, I have to call Nationwide and file a identity theft claim on myself. I've had somebody in an apartment in New Jersey has tried to take out a loan in my name and had most of my information. It's on my credit report, and then Capital One called me about a month ago, and they said, "Hey, we just shipped your new card to Florida." And I said, "I don't freaking live in Florida, assholes."
They're sending it to Joe.
Yeah,
He's down there.
And so
it's a grand plan for Joe to be the one who hacks everyone.
Well, and the thing about it,
have a good day.
Yeah, and the thing about it that was so interesting to me was I've had multiple people take out credit cards in my name and try to steal my identity. They have my social, they have all this information, and so about a year ago, I called Capital One and I had them send me over to, I believe it was TransUnion, one of the 3 big credit reporting agencies, and I got put on, the 7-year watch list. Basically, when somebody tries, even like for instance, when I took out a mortgage, they had a department that had to call me on a recorded conversation and, verify that I wanted to take out this mortgage, right? So, I'm going to be filing an identity theft claim today on myself with all that's happened. But the thing that I want agents to take away from this podcast, if there's one thing that I want them to understand, and Joe, you can help me out with this. You've already talked a little bit about this, but as it relates to cyber and, business insurance, I'll use myself as an example. I have a BOP, a business owner's policy, written through Nationwide Insurance. As an endorsement to that policy, I have cyber coverage as an endorsement on that policy. It is a joke, right? It is an absolute joke what I have. It's like, I don't remember the specifics, but talk a little bit about the difference between using a bolt-on endorsement on a policy and how different that can be from getting a really good standalone cyber policy. And then I also want you to talk about the differences in all these policies, because if you really look down into the policy language, all of these cyber policies, you can see some pretty damn big differences, can't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm going to first say, I think carriers' intentions with being able to endorse a policy with cyber coverage was to just try to extend that liability to some degree. But as you guys know, seasoned veterans, that's going to be a broad stroke with limited coverage. And I'll tell you why, and I'm sure you can guess this. Carriers are really afraid to open that Pandora's box and say, okay, we're going to cover any cyber-related event.
Exactly.
Because that's like writing a blank check.
Carriers aren't afraid to do anything.
Not at all. Not at all. I misspoke. You might want to edit that out. So if you look at it from that perspective, then you look at your policy. Okay, yeah, you're going to have, and with an endorsement, what I'm finding in general is you're going to have some data breach coverage. Okay, say you get hacked and they get into your data. You might have, $25,000 or $250,000 in coverage to recover that data. And it's typically very general language. and it's going to have exclusions. It's going to be based, or I'm just speaking generally. I don't know how Nationwide does it, but I'm just saying based on what I've seen. You're going to have some coverage, but it's not going to address the different layers of data recovery and business rebuilding that you're really going to need when it comes down, when push comes to shove, if it happens. So, yes, it is some coverage. The thing that I would kind of implore agents to do is get with a carrier. I found a couple of carriers, and I'll say it on air. Evolve and Corvus. Evolve is a startup out of California, San Francisco, but they're ex-Lloyd's underwriters. They're really well connected with Lloyd's products and policies, and they have taken coverage understanding to a level I haven't seen with any carrier. I mean, they will sit there with me for a couple of hours and go through coverage by coverage. I can send them a policy, and they will break it out for me what a business currently has and where all the other exposures exist. And so, what does that mean, right? So.
And what was that company name again, Joe? I want to write that down myself.
Evolve.
Okay.
And then there's Corvus, who also has a smart cyber product, and they're really great. And
spell Corvus.
Corvus, Corvus.
Okay.
They're also just kind of one of these. To me, they focus on cargo and cyber, but cyber is a big product for them. Evolve is cyber only, so their head is in the game on every aspect of cyber, and the experience you get as an agent and the way they just educate you is phenomenal.
And do these policies, because I know there's some cyber companies out there that offer really, really good standalone cyber policies, but the caveat to that is you have to use their cyber software on your computer.
You don't. In fact, I have not written through Corvus. I have written policies through Evolve. They offer free software if you would like to use it as a customer,
right? For
prevention and monitoring and fish testing. There's different exercises that you can run with your staff, and there's different things you can set up to monitor to try to detect threats in real time more accurately. Excuse me. So they do give you that option to use those things, but it is not a requirement in the lease. So the best part about it, and I'll continue to repeat this a little bit, but it's just the education piece. You know, you get to understand where coverage starts and ends in policies and where it really matters to the pain points that your businesses need, your clients need to know about, because it's not just, losing data and paying for the expense of shutting that virus down. You're going to have a need for a lot more coverage in terms of notifying the clients, getting the forensics team in, getting the clients that were affected onto a monitoring program, because you're going to be required to make sure that their credit and stuff is being monitored once it's been hacked.
Right.
And then there's laws and regulations. I mean, you can have to pay fines based on where you are if there's a breach on your system. And, beyond that, you got business interruption. I mean, there's businesses that might go down for 60 to 120 days because their system is completely, annihilated, depending on how big you are, depending on how quick it spreads. But here's the thing, too. In just about every instance, I would say, I think it's 80 to 90% of the time, humans are the factor or the reason hackers get in. And human error is the number one reason somebody gets into your system.
Yeah, opening up an email they're not supposed to, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the common one. And you can buy. There's a lot of prevention mechanisms and software that exist that you can use to try to detect and prevent things from getting through. And that software, it's gotten really fine tuned and it works well in a lot of cases. But humans are humans, and they're going to make mistakes, and they're going to click on things or get distracted for a minute, put a thumb drive into a system and a USB port that doesn't belong in there, and it very quickly turns messy.
Well, I can promise you this: in July of 2020, when we go fully independent at that time, I will definitely have a standalone cyber policy, and I appreciate you sharing those two companies with us.
Yeah,
guys, if you want to learn more, I'm sure it's evolve.com, EVOLVE. Give it a Google, as I like to say.
Yeah,
the other was Corvus, Corvus. Two companies to definitely look into. Joe, before I let you go, I want to talk a little bit about our show. on Instagram. I know that this was something that you created in the summer of 2018. Give me a little background on that and talk a little bit about your show that you've got on Instagram.
Yeah, funny enough, it was after the first Elevate I went to in 2017 that I really started to appreciate what we were talking about earlier with all the networking and everybody's just trying to figure out, back then, a couple years ago, a lot of the conversation was, InsurTech's going to disrupt our agencies or
Right.
our lives, that, we're doomed. We got to find we either adapt to InsurTech or we're done. So back then I was like, it just feels like a scramble. Like everybody's trying to figure out where their head is, what they're going to do. So I said, you know what, I want to get online and just try to hear other people's stories, what they're doing, what they're going through. If I get 5 viewers a week or whatever, it doesn't matter. I just want to connect with a few people and see, kind of hear their stories. Kind of an extension of what I got at Elevate, which is where people's heads were at that time. It took me a little while to figure that out and do it. But once I started doing it, I came to really appreciate the value of just talking to other people. And live, the component of live and why I kind of kept it live is because it allows for honesty and just more rawness than you're going to get, I feel, in an edited conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's something that for me has been really valuable. I love the facet of watching somebody answer a question and then go off on a tangent and tell me something honest and true to them. And that's been some of my favorite moments.
Also, there's obviously some white space there with it being the only live insurance show.
Right.
From a marketing standpoint, but also like myself, I love my favorite part of Saturday mornings is I cook breakfast and I watch Joe on the Insurance Scramble.
Are you serious?
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That makes my year, Bradley.
Yeah. I try not to miss it. If I miss one, man, it's because I overslept. Usually Saturday is the only day that I get up after 5 a.m.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Is there any moment in time in your life when you are awake that you're not thinking about insurance? Ever?
Probably not.
Probably not. For me too.
Like last night, I looked down the table and I'm just like watching all these people carrying on conversation, and there's Bradley down there talking about some damn insurance thing. I'm like, does he ever talk about anything but insurance? Ever?
That's why me and my wife are perfect together, because she does it too.
Same way, yeah. It's
So,
amazing.
our friends that don't sell insurance are just like sitting there rolling their eyes when we're like at dinner or whatever. They're just like, "Oh my God."
Hey, well, I'm gonna tell everybody, agents that are listening to this right now. Hey, I know for a fact, because I've listened to a couple of these episodes, Joe's got some of the same guests on that we've had on. I know Aaron Nutting was on recently. Ryan Hanley's been on that show. There's a bunch of different folks that have been on that show, and I'm going to start listening to those episodes.
Jared
as
Bellman?
well. Yeah. So
Scott's going to be on that show.
Oh, now I don't know about that. You don't want
hair straight up in the air 6 a.m. Scott, do you?
No, you don't.
I want. That's exactly.
Seth Zaremba got a good dose of that the other day.
Yes, he did. Guys, I want you to start listening to the Insurance Scramble, and I'm going to tell you how to go listen to it. Open up your Instagram. I know you all have it on your home screen on your phone that is surgically attached to your arm, and go to @the Insurance Scramble Live, @the Insurance Scramble Live on Instagram, and go give my friend and great American Joe a listen the next time you get a chance. Joe, I want to tell you how much I appreciate you being on the show today, man. It really means a lot to me.
Same here. It's such a pleasure to talk to you guys on a regular basis, and this is a true blessing to be on today.
Hey, I'm gonna give you a little happy to end the show with. So in the next, I've been super busy the last 3 or 4 months. Hadn't really had any wife husband time here lately, but I'm about to plan a trip down to stay at the Westin on I believe it's on Royal Street down in New Orleans here in the next month or two.
Awesome.
And when I come
Where are you
down,
going back to New Orleans.
This time to have have fun and do fun stuff. But when I come down there, I am going to call you, and you and I are going to get together for lunch, drinks, coffee, whatever. When I'm down there, I'd like to see you again, spend some time with you.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, if you have a little bit, I don't want to take up too much of your trip time, but if you have a day, we should try to go fishing.
Oh, love that. I'd love that.
But if nothing else, definitely coffee or lunch or drinks or all of it.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I want to say again how much we appreciate you being on here. I'm going to go ahead and close this thing out. Guys, listen, I know cyber's not real sexy. I know it can be boring and your eyes glass over, but if you sell, especially if you sell commercial insurance, guys, and you're dealing with retail establishments, online, if you're selling to online establishments, anybody that has a pretty big customer base that keeps stuff on a computer, that has, management systems, I'm sorry, but we're at the point where you got to have it. You just got to have it. So, before you just don't do your research and don't get educated, remember this: if you're just bolting on an endorsement on some bot policy that you got for them, you may be selling that client way short on what they need in terms of cyber, and you need to look at these standalone cyber policies that offer like 100 times more coverage than what you're giving them. But, Joe, I really appreciate you being on the show. Listen, guys, get your ass out there behind that desk today and go out in the big bad world and go sell insurance. Make money for your family, make money for your husband, for your wife, for your kids. And remember this: rewards come from action, not discussion. Quit talking and go do. Write good business for the companies that you represent and write good business for the agencies that you represent. Bradley Flowers, I love you.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Joe.
Hey, guys.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Hey, guys, you're listening to the Insurance Guys podcast, and we'll be back real soon. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Insurance Guys podcast. If you need to know more about me or you need to get in touch with Scott, you can always reach me at theinsuranceguyonline.com or email me at iprotectins@gmail.com. And if you need to get in touch with Mr. Bradley Flowers, go to bradleyflowersinsurance.com or email him at bradley@saralandinsurance.com. Guys, we love you. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to being with you again real soon on the next episode of The Insurance Guys. Take care.